Hello and welcome to this edition of Motivation Matters with me, Mark Terrell. We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and on Facebook. So if you want to leave some comments, then please do. I will get back to you as I won't be able to reply during the live. Too much to think about tech-wise and all the other stuff that's going on. But I will obviously reply to your comments as and when I can. So today I'm going to be talking about leadership, why motivation matters to leadership. And I think the first thing to say is that there isn't anything more important than good quality leadership in any business or organisation. And nothing much will happen without it. So we've got to concentrate on how we create good leaders and make sure that we have a good supply of leaders coming through an organisation. And how do we do that? Well, we have to have some sort of strategy, don't we? And well, particularly what I'm going to talk about today is actually how much motivation is, well, leadership is about motivation. And sort of break that down into some elements that hopefully it can make sense of it all, because it's, leadership's complicated and you could say motivation is complicated. So I'm hopefully going to be able to simplify and also connect them both together so that you can get a sense of what motivation means to leadership and leadership means to motivation, because I think they go hand in hand. So leadership is important. Why is it important? Well, everybody needs or wants to be led in some way, some more than others, but we have to set a direction, and that's the key. And I will quote Eisenhower, Dwight Eisenhower, who said about leadership: leadership is the ability to get a man to do what you want him to do, when you want it done, in a way you want it done, because he wants to do it. And obviously I say man, it's obviously can be woman as well. But that's something that we need to remember, and also particularly when we think about when they want to do it themselves, I think that's a key to link in what leadership is and how motivation fits into leadership and getting people to do things because they want to. Because remember, motivation, if you split it's two words fused together. It's motive and action. So motive being the reason, action being the thing we do because of it. So that links in well to what Dwight Eisenhower said. Let's think about why people come to work and do the things that they want to do, as opposed to making them do all the things that they maybe don't want to do. That's the key. So if we think about leadership, breaking it down into what a leader does, then we use a model that's been created by Motivational Maps, which thinks about, well, actually 4 elements there are to a leadership. Firstly, there is actually those 4 divided into two elements, one being working on the business and one working in the business. So when we talk about working on the business, then that entails doing thinking, and the other thing, the doing. And there's obviously some doing with leadership. It's not the doing as in hopefully not too much of the hands-on doing the work, but bearing in mind what leadership is, it's about setting the direction. So there are things that we need to do, and I'll break down what those doing things are in a second. But if any of you are aware of a great book written by Gino Wickman called, eludes me now, what's it called? Preparation, Mark. It's called, anyway, there's a group, I'll think of it in a minute. And he basically breaks down the leaders in a business need to have vision, and they also need to have the ability to integrate. And what we tend to find is that leaders tend to be either visionary or integrators. So the ones that have the vision are not particularly very good at making things work within the business, and vice versa. The ones that are making things happen, maybe not quite so good at the visionary part. I'm generalising here, but I can't remember the name of that book, annoyingly. But it's a great book, and I will share that link in the comments when I finish. But when we think about those two things, we tend to be good at one or the other, and we need to find the other complementary things. But in the meantime, we've got to think about how those two things are covered. So we talked about on the business, and then we've got to think about what we do when we're in the business. So what are those things that we have to do when we are leading and we are working in the business? And I suggest what those two things would be. Firstly, team building, because obviously we need to make sure we have the right people to do the job and allow the business to grow. And we also need to be able to understand and be able to motivate our team, understanding what motivates them. So those key things. So the 4 things that our leaders should be doing in the business is doing thinking, doing some doing team building. In the business, in team building in the business, and motivating. So they are 4 things that a leader should be think about and have in their diary. Those 4 things should be priority. I know things get to a situation where you get distracted and have to do other things, but they're primarily the things that a leader should be concentrating on. But there is the one other element we talk about in motivational maps, and that is the self. Self-development is key. No leader can really lead unless they are actually developing themselves and making improving their abilities. They are developing themselves to stay relevant, really, to make sure that they have the skills for the modern day and all the things that are changing at the moment. We have AI, which seems to be topical at the moment, and how does that work within every business? There's implications for every business, I believe. So we need to stay relevant, and so self-development is key, and also understanding what it is that we actually want from our role as a leader. I think that's key as well. I lost sight of what I was actually really doing in my business. And once you actually focus on the things that you should be doing and try to avoid the things that you shouldn't be doing, then you are going to be far more effective and allow the business to grow. So, working in the business is all about motivation, if you think about it. When I mentioned the 2 things, the team building and motivating, it's about really understanding how to build a team, and not a team based just on abilities. When we just concentrate on abilities, this is why just looking at a CV never works. We need to think about what that person actually comes to work for, and link that up to the things that the role needs and wants and the business needs from that role. And that's not just about skills, it's about actually wanting to do things. So we're going back to that thing around wanting to do things, and when we want to do something, we are going to be far more effective. So we can do a certain amount just with the skills, but if we haven't got the will to do it, then are we ever going to be performing at our best? And also, what I tend to find is that when there's something that we don't really want to do, then we avoid it, even though it might be part of our role. So as we are on this live stream today, a lot of people will avoid doing this even though they know that it's the right thing to do. So sometimes you have to go above and beyond what you actually want to do, but do them anyway. But I think the key is to link them to the things that you really want from your business. So for me, it's obviously getting the word out, understanding what motivation is and the implications, and how I can help businesses with regards to that by getting the message out, doing these things. So I've done a bit of a rattle through with regards to motivation, but I hope you can see that there's a lot of correlation with regards to what leaders need to do and what motivation is. And if we think about a percentage with regards to how much motivation is or leadership is influenced by motivation and the knowledge around motivation, I believe we're thinking about at least 50%. 50% of what leadership is all about understanding what motivation is. So we have to make sure that we are motivated ourselves as leaders. That's number one. How can you possibly lead a team if you're not the most motivated person or understand what motivation is? And then when you come to the role that you have that you play in your business or in your organisation, you've got to think about the things that are important, the things that you need to put in your diary and prioritise. So, as I've mentioned, in the business is about team building and then motivating that team. And then when you're working on the business, you're thinking and you're doing things. And again, when we kind of think about doing, it's about finding the right people that are going to allow the business to grow and actually free up your time. And thinking is about how do we make this business profitable? How does it make it more efficient? And that is about, again, thinking about the right people in the business and making sure that you're doing your part as a leader to make sure those elements are right in the business. So I just want to share, before I go, the motivational maps model which I use to identify motivations. So this is the 9 motivations to work, and if you haven't done a motivational map, then get in touch, and I have the ability to allow you to do a motivational map and also understand what it is that you really come to work for. But when we think about these 9 motivations, we're not thinking about just giving you a label. We're thinking about actually what is it that's driving you at the moment. So we need to put them in order, and this is what we do with regards to the map. It puts them in an order. So here's an example of someone's map, from most important being spirit, which is about freedom and autonomy, down to the lowest being the expert. So just a way of understanding what motivation is. One of the things, or the thing about motivation, is it's an invisible energy that we all have, and we need the ability to make it visible in some way. Right, so just before we go then, just a quick summary of what I've talked about. Here's on the screen. So there's nothing more important than quality leadership for any business. Leaders need to work on the business with thinking and doing, but they also need to work in the business with regards to team building and motivating. Leaders need to work on themselves to stay relevant, so self-development is essential. And with all that taken into account, I think leadership is at least 50% of what a leader should be concentrating on. So there we are. It's a quick run through with regards to leadership, the connection to motivation, and how we can identify motivation for you and everyone in your team. So I hope you found that useful wherever you saw this. As I mentioned, please leave the comments if there's any questions you want to ask. Then happy to answer those questions. But for now, I hope you have a great day, and I will see you again for another Motivation Matters live very soon.